The man I thought I knew. My husband died with a secret, not the kind you expect, not an affair, not a debt, not another family tucked away in another city. Something so much harder to explain than any of those things. Something that broke me open, not because it was wrong, but because it was so profoundly, heartbreakingly right. My name is Sarah Calloway. I'm 34 years old. I live in a suburb outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in the same house I shared with my husband Marcus for 9 years. We were the kind of couple people pointed to at dinner parties and said, "That's what it looks like when it works." Not because we were flashy or perfect, but because we were steady, because we laughed at the same things, because after 9 years, he still reached for my hand in parking lots. Marcus died 8 months ago. A brain aneurysm. Sudden. No warning. He was 41 years old, healthy by every measure, coaching our neighbor's kids' Little League team on a Saturday morning, and then he wasn't. The call came at 11:17 a.m. I know the exact time because I was standing in the kitchen making a grocery list, and I remember looking at the clock on the microwave and thinking, he should be back by now. He never came back. The weeks after Marcus died are something I can only describe as existing inside a fog that has weight. Everything was heavy. The air was heavy. Getting out of bed was an act of physical courage. My sister Diane flew in from Portland and stayed for 3 weeks, sleeping on the couch, making coffee I didn't drink, sitting next to me on the back porch in the evenings without saying anything, which was exactly what I needed. People from our neighborhood brought food. His coworkers from the architecture firm sent flowers, and then a card signed by 40 people. His college roommate flew in for the funeral and cried harder than anyone. Marcus was that kind of man, the kind people showed up for. Or so I thought I understood. I didn't understand anything yet. He worked as a structural architect. Mid-sized firm, decent salary, comfortable, not wealthy. We owned our house. We had savings. We took one real vacation a year, usually somewhere with a long drive and a cabin instead of a flight and a resort, because Marcus liked to move slow and look at things. We had talked about starting a family. We were in that in-between space, not trying, not trying, the way you are in your early 30s when you still feel like there's time, and you're not quite ready to stop being just the two of you. Now I was just one of me, and the silence in this house was something I was still learning to survive. It started with a phone call I almost didn't answer. 6 weeks after the funeral, a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at the kitchen table going through paperwork, death certificates, insurance forms, the particular bureaucratic cruelty of grief, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize, Nashville area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something made me pick up. "Is this Sarah Calloway?" A woman's voice, older, careful. "Yes." "My name is Dorothy Haynes. I knew your husband. I'm so sorry for your loss." A pause. "I was wondering if I might come and see you. There are some things I think you should know." Something in the way she said it, not urgent, not dramatic, but settled, like a woman who had been waiting to make this call and had decided the time was right, made me say yes before I'd thought it through. "When?" I asked. "Whenever you're ready," she said. "I'll come to you." Dorothy Haynes arrived on a Thursday. She was in her mid-70s, small, with white hair cut short, and the kind of posture that tells you a person has moved through the world with intention. She was dressed simply, dark slacks, a blue cardigan, sensible shoes. She carried a canvas tote bag over one shoulder. She sat across from me at the kitchen table and folded her hands and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Not pity, something gentler than pity, something that looked almost like respect. "How did you know Marcus?" I asked. She smiled quietly. "He helped me," she said. "A few years ago, when I was in a situation I didn't know how to get out of. He made it possible for me to get out of it." I waited. "I don't want to overwhelm you," she said, "but I want you to know who you were married to. Fully, because I'm not sure you do." She reached into the canvas bag and set something on the table between us. A manila envelope, thick, sealed. My name on the front in Marcus's handwriting. My hands shook when I picked it up. Marcus's handwriting on the outside, that familiar mix of architect's precision and personal sloppiness, block letters for the S, a looping C, the way he always wrote the second A in my name slightly smaller than the first, like an afterthought he couldn't quite correct. I looked up at Dorothy. "He gave that to me 2 years ago," she said. "He asked me to hold it. He said that if anything ever happened to him, I should wait 6 weeks and then bring it to you." She paused. "He said 6 weeks because he wanted you to have time to breathe first." 6 weeks. He had planned for the possibility of his own absence with the same careful attention he brought to everything else. He had thought about what I would need and in what order. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, and behind it a key, small, silver, the kind that belongs to a safe deposit box. I read the letter first. "Sarah, if you're reading this, then something happened, and I didn't get the chance to tell you this in person. I've been meaning to for years. I kept finding reasons to wait. I think part of me was afraid of how it would change the way you looked at me, though I could never decide which direction the change would go. I need to tell you about the other part of my life, the part I kept separate, not because I was hiding it from you in the way that word usually means, but because it felt private in a way I couldn't explain, like something that would shrink if I talked about it too much. In the bottom drawer of my desk, behind the hanging files, there's a second key. It matches the one Dorothy gave you. Both keys open the same box. First Tennessee Bank on Charlotte Avenue, box 1142. Go there, look at what's inside, and then, if you can, try to understand. I love you. I always did. I loved you in the everyday ways that are easy to see, but I also loved you in this way, by trying, quietly, to make the world around us a little less cruel. Your Marcus. I went to the bank the next morning. Diane drove me. I hadn't told her what was in the letter. I couldn't find the words to explain it yet, so I just said I had to take care of something with Marcus's accounts, and she nodded and put on her coat without asking questions. That's one of the things I love most about my sister. The bank was quiet at 9 in the morning. A teller led me to the vault room, those rows of small metal doors, each one holding somebody's version of important. She checked my identification twice, verified both keys, and left me alone in a small private room with the box. It was heavier than I expected. I set it on the table, sat down, breathed, then I opened it. There was no cash, no jewels, no deed to a property I didn't know about. What was inside the box was paper. Pages and pages of paper, organized into sections with small metal binder clips. Each section had a handwritten label on the top page. I picked up the first one. The label said, "Henderson Family, 2019. Underneath was a printout of an email chain. A woman named Carol Henderson, writing to what appeared to be a housing assistance organization, explaining that her family was about to be evicted. 3 kids, a husband who'd been laid off, a landlord who wasn't willing to wait. Behind the email was a bank receipt, a wire transfer, from an account I had never seen before, to Carol Henderson's landlord. $6,000, paid in full, sent 2 days after the email was written. At the bottom of the page, in Marcus's handwriting, confirmed stable, kids stayed in school district. I set it down, picked up the next one. A man named Raymond Torres, 2017. Medical debt. Stage 2 cancer diagnosis, no insurance, treatment costs that had become impossible. Behind the summary, another receipt. $14,000 sent to the hospital billing department. Marcus's note, treatment completed, 2 years clear. Next section. A single mother in Clarksville named Brianna Walsh, 2020. Car repossessed. No car meant no job. No job meant no rent. A receipt. A car payment made directly to the lender, enough to bring the account current and cover 3 months forward. Marcus's note. Back to work. Doing well. I went through every section. There were 31 of them. 31 people. 31 moments when someone's life had reached a breaking point, and something had quietly reached in and stopped the break. I sat in that little bank room for over 2 hours. The teller knocked once, gently, around the 45-minute mark, and I said, "I'm okay. I need a little more time." And she said, "Take all the time you need, ma'am," and left me alone. I read every page, every name, every situation, every careful, factual note in my husband's handwriting. Not emotional, not self-congratulatory, just precise. Who they were, what happened, what he did. And then the follow-up, always a follow-up. What happened next? Whether it worked, whether the family stabilized, whether the treatment succeeded, whether the person got back on their feet. He had kept track. Not because he wanted credit, because he cared what happened after. At the very bottom of the box, there was one more envelope, smaller than the first, no name on the outside, just a single word written in Marcus's handwriting. It said, "Last." I almost didn't open it. I had already absorbed more than I thought I could hold. My chest felt like something inside it had cracked open. Not painfully exactly, but thoroughly, the way a geode cracks, showing you something brilliant and unexpected that was always there, always forming, just hidden inside ordinary stone. But I opened it. Inside was a single folded page and a photograph. The photograph stopped my heart. It was a picture of a girl, young, maybe 8 or 9 years old in the photo, dark braids, a gap-toothed smile so wide it took up half her face. She was standing in front of what looked like a school, wearing a backpack almost as big as she was, holding up a piece of paper toward the camera with both hands like it was a trophy. On the paper, in a child's careful handwriting, it said, "First day of 3rd grade." I turned the photograph over. On the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize, not Marcus's, were 4 words. "Thank you. She's thriving." I unfolded the page. It was a letter, handwritten, 2 pages. It began, "My name is Renata Osei. You don't know me, but your husband saved my daughter's life." I read it slowly. Renata wrote that in 2016, she had been a single mother in the worst year of her life. She'd fled a dangerous situation. She was careful about the details, but clear enough, with her daughter Amara, who was 4 years old. They'd landed in Nashville with nothing. No family, no savings, no plan beyond getting out. Amara had a heart condition, not severe enough to be immediately life-threatening, but serious enough to require regular monitoring, and eventually a procedure that Renata had no way to pay for. She had applied to every assistance program she could find. She had been denied or waitlisted or told to come back in 6 months. Then, one day, she received a call from her daughter's cardiologist's office. The bill had been paid, in full, anonymously. Renata wrote, "I tried for 2 years to find out who did it. The hospital wouldn't tell me. The billing department said it came through a third party, and they had no name to give. I asked everyone I could think of. Then, one evening, she was at a community fundraiser at a local community center, the kind of low-key neighborhood event where people bring potluck dishes and local organizations set up tables. And she got to talking with a man who was volunteering at one of the tables. He was tall, friendly. He had the kind of face that made you feel like he was actually listening," she wrote, "not just waiting for his turn to talk." They talked for almost an hour. She told him about Amara, about how well she was doing now, about what the last few years had been like. She told him about the anonymous payment that had changed everything, and how she'd never been able to thank whoever had done it. The man smiled. He didn't say anything. But she knew. She wrote, "I could see it in his face. It was him. I knew it as surely as I've ever known anything. He didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it. He just looked at me and said, 'Amara sounds like an amazing kid,' and then he changed the subject." She had gotten his name from someone else at the event, Marcus Calloway. She'd written the letter a year later. She had sent it to Dorothy Haynes. She didn't explain how she'd found Dorothy, just that she had, and asked her to make sure it got to Marcus. Then, at the very end of the letter, Renata wrote something that made me have to put the page down and press my hands flat on the table and just breathe. She wrote, "I want you to know that I never told him this, but I had a plan that night. The night before Amara's procedure, before we found out the bill was paid, I had a plan I am not proud of, and I am grateful every single day that I didn't have to use it. Whatever he did, whoever he was, he didn't just save my daughter's life, he saved mine too. I sat in that room for a long time after I finished reading, not crying, past crying somehow, just sitting with it. I called Dorothy that evening. She answered on the second ring, like she'd been waiting. I read everything, I said. I know this is a lot, she said. How long did you know him? I asked. A pause. Longer than you might expect, she said carefully. Sarah, there's something else I should have told you when I came to see you. I didn't, because I wasn't sure you were ready, but I think you are now. My chest tightened. What is it? She took a breath. Marcus didn't start this on his own, she said. He learned it, from someone who taught him when he was very young. Someone who believed that the most important things you do in the world are the ones no one ever knows about. I didn't say anything. I waited. His mother, Dorothy said quietly. Eleanor Calloway. She did this for 30 years before Marcus ever started. He grew up watching her. He never told you because she never told anyone, not even her own son, until she was dying and needed someone to carry it forward. Eleanor Calloway, Marcus's mother, who had died 6 years before I met him. The woman whose photo sat on our bookshelf in the living room. A small woman with warm eyes and a composed, private smile. The kind of smile that now, knowing what I knew, suddenly looked completely different. I had looked at that photograph 1,000 times. I had never known what I was looking at. He told me about her in the last year of his life, Dorothy said. He said she used to tell him, "You will never be able to explain to people why this matters, so don't try, just do it. The doing is the explanation." I sat down on the floor of my kitchen, right there on the tile, back against the cabinet, phone pressed to my ear. Because it turned out the man I had loved for 9 years was not hiding from me. He was carrying something. Something his mother had placed in his hands when he was barely old enough to understand it. A practice, a way of moving through the world, a private commitment to the radical, unglamorous, invisible work of making sure that when people hit the bottom wasn't as hard as it could have been. He had loved me in the easy, visible ways, and he had loved the world in this way. Both were real. Both were him. 3 weeks later, I got a card in the mail. No return address, Nashville postmark. Inside was a short note, written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. Mrs. Calloway. My name is Amara Osei. I'm 11 years old. My mom told me about your husband. She said he was the reason I got to grow up. I'm sorry he died. He sounded really kind. My mom said I should write to you because she thought you might be sad and not know how much he mattered. He mattered a lot. I'm in 5th grade now. I want to be a doctor when I grow up so I can help kids like me. I hope you feel better soon. Love, Amara. There was a drawing at the bottom of the card, crayon. A woman standing in a field of flowers, with a big yellow sun in the corner and birds that looked more like check marks than birds. And underneath the drawing, in careful letters, "This is you. I made the flowers big because I thought you deserved them." I put that card on my refrigerator. It's still there. It will stay there. 8 months later, here is what I know. I know that the man I married was not hiding a secret life in the way that phrase is usually meant. He was living 2 truths at the same time. The ordinary, beautiful truth of us, the hand-holding in parking lots and the slow drives and the years of just being together, and the quieter truth of what he did when no one was watching. I know that his mother did it before him, and that she passed it on the only way it can really be passed on, not through a lecture or a mission statement, but through a child watching a parent live a certain way and absorbing, slowly, the shape of it. I know that 31 people in and around Nashville, and however many his mother reached in the 30 years before him, moved through their worst moments differently because of this family's invisible, stubborn insistence on showing up. I know that a girl named Amara Osei is in 5th grade and wants to be a doctor and draws flowers in crayon for grieving women she's never met. And I know this. I didn't know my husband as fully as I thought I did. Not because he was hiding, but because some people are deeper than the surface of them. Some people are doing something underneath the visible life, something they don't announce, something that doesn't need an audience, something that just continues, year after year, steady and quiet as a river that nobody's mapped. Marcus was that kind of person. His mother was that kind of person. And now I am learning, slowly, imperfectly, with a lot of help from a woman named Dorothy Haynes, who has become something like a second mother to me in these strange, grief-soaked months, what it might mean to become that kind of person too. Last month, I paid someone's electric bill, a family 2 streets over. I found out through a neighbor who mentioned, offhandedly, that they were struggling. I made a call. I asked the utility company to accept a payment from a third party. I did not leave my name. It cost me $240. It cost Marcus, over the course of his life, far more than that. In money, in time, in the private weight of carrying something this large for this long without being able to share it. But here is what he never told me, and what I am now beginning to understand from the inside. It doesn't feel like a cost. It feels like the most alive I've felt since the day I lost him. The photograph of Eleanor Calloway is still on our bookshelf. I look at it differently now. That private smile. I know what it means. It means she knew something most people spend their whole lives looking for and never find. It means she had figured out, quietly and without fanfare, what she was here to do. Marcus figured it out too. He just never got the chance to tell me. So he left me a key instead, and a letter, and a box full of the truest thing I've ever known about who I was lucky enough to love, and an 11-year-old girl's drawing of flowers, which, it turns out, was more than enough.